Kansas Governor Sam Brownback effectively said goodbye last night in a State of the State speech that was short on policy recommendations but long on reflection.
My budget recommendations includes an additional $600 million in funding over the next 5 years.
Several lawmakers strongly objected to Brownback's plan to comply with the Supreme Court order to boost school funding.
A new governor of Kansas will be sworn in on January 31st. As Jeff Collier takes over for Sam Brownback, who's off to the Trump State Department, he's also running to be governor in his own right.
So this is his opportunity to show what he's made of and that he's not just going to be a carbon copy of the last administration.
So today is a new day in Kansas. I will not be responsible for shutting down Kansas government or our schools. This is not Washington.
In the past year, the Kansas foster care system has made quite a few headlines, and not the heartwarming kind. Kids gone missing, children harmed in state custody, documents in critical child welfare cases shredded.
The number of kids sleeping in offices is accelerating. 108 kids stayed overnight between July 2016 and June 2017.
School psychologists are spread thin, especially in rural Kansas.
I put about 35,000 miles on my car over this last year and a half.
Since 2013, Kansas's Secure and Fair Elections law requires Kansans to prove citizenship with papers like birth certificates or passports. While that was easy for my colleague, the ACLU and others have tied up the law in state and federal courts.
40% of rural Americans have no access to broadband, and the growth of streaming video is straining existing networks.
It's insane. Netflix is 42% of our total internet traffic.
Each summer since the bloom at Milford Lake, the department has confirmed cases of toxic blue-green algae in dozens of lakes and ponds across Kansas.
So you can just see a little bit of color differentiation, but if you're the average person, you go, I don't know, it looks like pond scum to me.
Any child who's been taken from their home has been through something traumatic. Kids often react with behavior that's confusing, sometimes scary, for foster parents and adoptive families. The happy endings don't come easy.
There was eggs and food on the floor, on the side of the refrigerator.
Let's say the court had said, you have to fix this now, or schools are closing in the fall. If that had happened, I think people would have been much more riled up. There would have been a bigger push for a constitutional amendment to take it out of the court's hands, and we would have seen much more arguing over how to handle this issue.
What's so provocative about the American flag? And
no, a machine gun in a parade, Chris, come on.
Well, last time I checked, in just about every parade I've been in, and I've been in many parades, they feature men with guns.
I went to the State House expecting Governor Collier to continue that back and forth he'd been waging with Kobach all week, but he didn't do that. Instead, he gave up, saying it was apparent he just didn't have the votes he needed to overcome Kobach's slim but persistent lead.
And I'm running for governor because I want to make sure that every child, no matter who they are or where they live, have the same opportunities to succeed that my daughters did.
A campaign spokeswoman says Kobach got that number from the work of Umber and Anderson, but neither of them told me they calculated $2 billion in savings.
The latest polls had the governor's race between Republican Secretary of State Chris Kobach and Democratic State Senator Laura Kelly as a dead heat, and the candidates had been bracing for a late night.
This wasn't one side beating the other. It was Democrats and Republicans and independents all coming together to put our state back on track.
Back on track, Kelly said after years. For the Kansas News Service, I'm Jim McLean.
I'm Madeline Fox. I'm Stephen Karanda.
I'm Celia Yopis-Jepson.
I'm Stephen Basaha.
I'm Nomeen Ujiyadeen.
And I'm Brian Grimmett.
The Kansas News Service is a collaboration of KCUR, Kansas Public Radio, KMUW, and High Plains Public Radio, covering health, education, and politics across the state.